Welcome back, Cyber Explorers. It's Alfie, and in this video we'll explore together with this step-by-step guide how to install Linux Debian 12, Graphical Expert install, same disk, alongside Windows. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First, let's clarify the title. Same disk means that we will install Debian on the same disk as Windows. So get your disk ready and ensure you have a free space on that disk. I recommend 50 gigabytes, but you can go with more or a little less. Alongside Windows means there will be a Windows operating system on the PC during the Debian installation process, and you will need to shrink a partition on the Windows disk to install Debian on using Windows Disk Management. And you will be able to switch between the systems, Windows and Debian, from the Grub boot menu, the System boot menu, the BIOS, UEFI, or other ways. Second, you will need a Debian 12 installation media, such as a Debian 12 bootable USB drive. Our video on how to create a Debian 12 bootable USB drive with Rufus might help you. The link is in the description below. Third, you will need to insert the USB drive into the computer, then restart the PC, and access the BIOS or UEFI. Adjust the boot priority to boot from the USB drive, or you can enter the boot menu and boot from the USB drive directly. Our video on how to boot from a USB drive might help you. The link is in the description below. Now, from the Debian installer menu, you can see if you are booted with UEFI or BIOS mode. Then choose Advanced Options, then Graphical Expert install. Next, follow the steps in the install process one by one. Select each step and click on Continue to set it up. This includes choosing the language, location, locale, and configuring the keyboard. While Detect and Mount installation media is selected, click on Continue. Keep the default option checked and click on Continue. While Load Installer Components is selected, click on Continue. You can select any components from the list if needed. While Detect Network Hardware is selected, click on Continue. Then, configure the network by clicking on Continue until you reach the hostname screen. Type a hostname for the system or leave it Debian as default and click on Continue. Leave the domain name blank as most people won't need it, and click on Continue. Now, set up users and passwords. Choose whether to allow login as root. If yes, type a root password twice. Next, create a normal account. Type a name for the user account. This will be the username. You can change it if you want. Then, type a password for the normal user account twice. Configure the clock. Click on Continue. Select yes or no based on your preference. Select your time zone based on the location you chose. Detect disk. Click on Continue. Partition disks. Click on Continue. Now, let's partition the disk. As we said, we will be installing Debian on the same disk as Windows, on the volume we just shrinked. Just no disks in Linux will show as SDA, SDB, etc., or NVMe0N1, NVMe1N1, etc., and partitions will show as SDAE1, SDAE2, etc., or NVMe0N1P1, NVMe0N1P2. Choose the partitioning method, guided. Use the largest continuous free space. Then click on Continue, and keep the default option all files in one partition, then click on Continue. Then Debian will partition the free space automatically. The partitions for UEFI boot are as follows in order: a system partition, max size minus swap size, a swap partition, same size of your RAM, or double it if you have low memory RAM. Swap partition is not required, but recommended. Instead of it, you can set up a swap file later, or choose the partitioning method, manual, and double-click on the free space to create the first partition, which will be the system partition. Keep the default option Create a new partition selected and click on Continue. Now give the partition a size. For the system partition, give it max size minus the size of the swap partition we will create later if you plan on creating one, and click on Continue. Keep the default option beginning selected and click on Continue. At the partition settings screen, double-click on Use as option and select X for journaling file system, and click on Continue. Then double-click on Mount Point option and select, or the root file system, and click on Continue. Then select Done setting up this partition and click on Continue. Now, double-click on the rest of the free space again to create the second partition, which will be the swap partition. Keep the default option Create a new partition selected and click on Continue. Now give the partition a size, which should be the rest of the free space. After doing some math to create the second partition and click on Continue. A swap partition can be the same size of your RAM, or double it if you have low memory RAM. Swap partition is not required, but recommended. Instead of it, you can set up a swap file later. At the partition settings screen, double-click on Use as option and select Swap Area, and click on Continue. Then select Done setting up this partition and click on Continue. The partitions for BIOS boot are as follows in order: a system partition, primary, max size minus swap size; a swap partition, logical, same size of your RAM, or double it if you have low memory RAM. Swap partition is not required, but recommended. Instead of it, you can set up a swap file later. Now, select Finish Partitioning and write changes to disk and click on Continue. Then select Yes to write the changes to disk and click on Continue. Install the base system. Click on Continue. At Kernel to Install screen, keep the default option selected. At Drivers to include in the Initiated, select Generic if planning to use the system on other computers, or Targeted if you will use the system only on this PC. Then, at Configure the Package Manager, which is called apt in Debian and Debian-based Linux distributions, select No for Scan Extra Installation Media, and click on Continue. Select Yes for Use a Network Mirror, and click on Continue. Choose a mirror country. I will go with the United States, and click on Continue. Then choose a mirror archive. I will go with deb.debian.org, and click on Continue. For the Use Non-Free Firmware and Use Non-Free Software screens, select Yes. For Enable Source Repositories in apt, select No. Keep the default options selected for the Services to Use screen, and click on Continue. Select and Install Software, click on Continue. Choose your preference for Updates Management, and select No for Participate in the Package Usage Survey. For software selection, select the desktop environment, DE for short, you want to use. Popular options can be GNOME, KDE Plasma, Cinnamon. Lightweight options can be Xfce, LXDE, and others. You can also select multiple desktop environments and switch between them at the login screen. I will go with GNOME Desktop Environment. If you need an SSH server or web server, you can select these options and keep standard system utilities selected, and click on Continue. Just know that you can install any of the desktop environments later by typing taskzil in the terminal. For Install the Grub bootloader, click on Continue. Select No for Force Grub installation to the FE removable media path, and Yes for Update NVRAM variables if you prefer to boot into Debian automatically. Choose Yes or No for Run OS Prober automatically to detect other operating systems based on your preference. OS Prober is used during installation to create a Grub boot menu that shows all discovered operating systems on the system. It can also be reconfigured after the Debian installation. To finish the installation, click on Continue. Answer yes or no to the question, is the system clock set to UTC? Then click on Continue. Finally, click on Continue to reboot. Now, at the login screen, if you installed multiple desktop environments, you can switch between them by clicking on the gear icon in this case, and choose the DE you want, then enter the password for the user account you created, then hit enter, and you will be at the desktop. And that's it for today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and don't forget to activate the notification bell so you won't miss out on any new uploads. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to share more with you. So, until next time, see you later.